Welcome to the debate. Imagine a World Cup final decided by 3 millimeters.
Wow. That is, a distance shorter than a grain of rice.
Exactly. A grain of rice. The referee didn't see it. The fans in the stadium, they definitely didn't see it. But an artificial intelligence did.
Right.
And, it overturned a championship-winning goal. So the question we are diving into today is this. Does that level of microscopic intervention make the game perfectly fair, or does it make it perfectly broken?
And that is exactly where the tension lies in the 2026 World Cup landscape. We are dealing with an unprecedented technological apparatus here, one that promises absolute certainty, but might actually just be delivering a highly convincing illusion.
We are going really deep into the infrastructure of this tournament today. For context, we are no longer relying on flat 2D broadcast cameras to uncover the truth of a football match.
No, far from it.
Right, they have scanned all 1,248 players in this tournament.
Every single one of them.
Every single one. They've built flawless 3D digital twins of every athlete. And I argue that these 3D avatars and the semi-automatic offside technology that drives them, well, they represent a massive triumph of objectivity.
I see.
They completely remove the human subjectivity that has plagued officiating for decades, providing transparent, undeniable visual evidence that guarantees fairness for the viewers.
And I take a very different view on this. I look at this vast system, and while I agree it is visually stunning, I argue that it creates a false illusion of perfect objectivity.
A false illusion?
It's these 3D avatars. They don't remove human subjectivity. They simply mask the inherent limitations of the technology itself. It just shifts the burden of subjective judgment away from the referee on the pitch, right into the hands of the software engineers.
Okay, but
It's a glossy rendering, It makes us feel like we've achieved absolute truth when reality is much messier.
Well, let's start by looking under the hood. Because if you're listening to this and wondering how we even got to the point of generating 3D avatars of football players in real time, the scale of what FIFA has done here is genuinely staggering.
Oh, the logistics alone are massive.
Exactly. Before the tournament even kicked off, every single player underwent a rapid body scan. Some took just a second, others up to 90 seconds.
Right, capturing everything from exact height to unique skeletal dimensions.
Exactly. Complete digital twins. Now, you pair those digital twins with the live match infrastructure. In every stadium, there are 12 dedicated optical tracking cameras.
12 cameras just for tracking.
Just for tracking. They are tracking 29 distinct data points on each player's body, joints, extremities, the top of the head, and they are capturing this 50 times per second.
And we can't forget the ball.
Right, the ball is the other half of the equation. There is a sensor suspended perfectly in the center of the match ball that transmits its precise location and the exact moment it gets kicked, 500 times per second.
500 hertz?
Yeah. So when you combine these two data streams, what this effectively does is eliminate the guesswork. Traditional officiating relied on a human eye, positioned imperfectly on a massive field, trying to process objects moving at 30 miles an hour.
Look, the numbers you decided are incredibly impressive. As an engineering feat, it is a marvel. But we have to question this core assumption of infallibility.
Okay.
You use words like eliminate the guesswork. But let's break down how those data streams actually interact. You said the cameras capture the players 50 times a second.
Correct. Every 20 milliseconds.
And the ball sensor fires 500 times a second, every 2 milliseconds.
Right.
So there is a temporal gap. The camera takes a snapshot at millisecond 0. It takes the next snapshot at millisecond 20. But what if the critical moment, the exact instant the ball is kicked by the midfielder, happens at millisecond 10?
Well, the
cameras literally did not see where the attacking player's knee was at millisecond 10. They were blind. So what does the system do?
It calculates the trajectory based on the frames it has. It is mathematically interpolating the position based on the player's velocity.
Exactly. Interpolation. Let me give you an analogy for what that means in practice. Interpolation is like, losing your GPS signal while driving through a tunnel.
That's a bit of an exaggeration, isn't it?
Hear me out. The computer guesses your location inside that tunnel based on how fast you were going and the direction you were heading when you first went in. It is a highly educated guess.
Right?
But football is chaotic. Players get clipped, the wind shifts, they stutter step. If a player changes their body mechanics in that 10-millisecond blind spot, the AI's quote-unquote guess is going to be wrong.
Hold on. I think comparing a 10-millisecond gap in optical tracking to a mile-long GPS tunnel is a massive stretch.
Is it though?
Yes, because the interpolation we are talking about is incredibly constrained. We are talking about fractions of an inch of potential variance. The algorithm is practically airtight because of the sheer volume of surrounding data.
But it's still a calculated guess.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. Let's look at the alternative. Before this, what do we actually have?
We had human referees and 2D VAR monitors.
We had absolute frustration. Fans, coaches, and players were utterly baffled by marginal calls. Why? Because the evidence we were given consisted of thin, arbitrarily placed lines drawn by a guy in a booth over flat 2D broadcast feeds.
That was definitely flawed, I'll admit.
It was. If an attacker was completely obstructed by two massive defenders, the 2D image was useless. It was subjective because the human operator had to literally guess where the hidden shoulder was.
And you're saying the 3D avatar solves the hidden shoulder problem?
Entirely. Because a system can rotate the perspective. It places the digital twin in the 3D space, meaning you can view the spatial relationship from an angle that no physical camera in the stadium could ever actually capture.
Generating an angle that doesn't exist.
It's exactly like a medical MRI. A traditional X-ray gives you a flat image. Bones overlap, they hide fractures. An MRI gives you a complete 3D map of the body.
Okay.
Just because a human doctor still has to read the MRI, does that mean we should doubt the machine's ability to map the tissue better than a naked eye looking at a flat X-ray?
That is a very compelling way to frame it, but the MRI analogy actually perfectly highlights my problem with this technology.
Oh, really? How so?
Because an MRI is a direct physical mapping of actual tissue present in the machine. The 3D avatars in this World Cup are generative representations based on algorithmic calculations.
But they're based on real-time data.
When the system has perfect lighting, sure, it's highly accurate. But what happens when the reality of the pitch is messy? What happens when torrential rain is actively interfering with the optical tracking of those 12 cameras? Heavy rain completely scrambles optical sensor data.
Well, the system flags when data quality drops. It's built for that.
It does flag it, but my point is that the AI does not render a blurry, uncertain image for the referee to review. Even if the underlying data is struggling through a rainstorm, the AI generates a pristine, clinical, structurally perfect 3D avatar, and I think that is incredibly dangerous.
Dangerous? I mean, dangerous is a strong word for a refereeing tool.
It's psychologically dangerous to the integrity of the officiating. When a human referee looks at a blurry 2D image, their brain registers doubt. They know they are looking at something ambiguous, so they exercise caution.
Okay, I follow you.
When they look at a flawless 3D render, that natural, healthy human skepticism is completely overridden by the aesthetic perfection of the image. The avatar tricks the human eye into believing it is looking at objective reality, when it might actually be looking at the algorithm's best guess during a rainstorm.
I see the psychological trap you're pointing to, but we have to remember the speed and the automated safety nets built into this backend.
Safety nets.
Yes. The system isn't just generating a pretty picture and hoping the referee falls for it. It's running continuous automated quality checks. Before a human even looks at the rendering, the system has mathematically verified that the data quality meets a specific threshold.
Assuming the threshold is high enough?
It is. It confirms there is no confusion between players, meaning it hasn't accidentally swapped the defender's leg for the attacker's leg in the scrum.
But the human still has to make the final call. The system is literally called semi-automated offside technology.
Let me translate that for everyone listening, because the semi part is crucial. Semi-automated simply means the AI draws the lines, maps the bodies, and flags the potential violation within milliseconds.
Right.
But a human in the video operation room still has to push the button saying, yes, that specific player was actually interfering with the play. The machine does the math, the human provides the context.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that it's that clean. That context is exactly where the subjectivity hides.
But doesn't that division of labor solve your exact worry? By isolating the spatial question, exactly where the bodies were, the AI frees the human referee to focus entirely on the contextual question.
In theory, yes. In practice, no. Because we are asking referees to sit in a video room and subjectively judge an AI's homework, rather than subjectively judging the live, fluid play on the pitch.
They're just verifying the facts.
We are putting those VAR officials in an almost impossible psychological position.
Why impossible? They have better tools than ever before.
Imagine you are that VAR official, a multi-million-dollar AI system processing thousands of data points per second, hands you a pristine 3D animation showing a player is offside by 2 millimeters.
Okay.
Are you, as a human being who wants to keep their job, really going to look at that flawless digital twin and say, you know what? The lighting is a bit poor today. I think the interpolation algorithm is slightly off. I'm going to override the machine?
If the data shows an error, yes, they are trained to do exactly that.
Never. They will never do it. The subjective human element is technically the final arbiter, but in practice, human judgment is being completely subjugated by the authoritative weight of the technology.
I think you're underestimating the referees.
We haven't removed subjectivity. We've just concentrated it entirely into the hands of the software engineers who wrote the interpolation algorithms before the tournament even started.
Look, I understand your skepticism about the psychological pressure on the referees, but let's shift our focus to the ultimate consumer of this entire spectacle, the fan.
The fans are definitely a crucial part of this.
Right. If you're a fan sitting in the stadium or watching at home, does this hyper-precise technology make football fairer for you? I argue strongly that it does, and it achieves that through absolute transparency.
Well, I mean, transparency is certainly the buzzword FIFA is leaning on.
But it's not just a buzzword, it's a deliverable reality. Look at the historical context of football. The greatest threat to the integrity of any sport is the perception that the rules are being applied arbitrarily.
Sure.
When fans watch a match and feel that decisions are based on the whims of a referee or a terrible angle from a single broadcast camera, trust evaporates entirely.
I agree that the 2D lines of the past felt arbitrary.
Right. So what does the 2026 system do? It instantly produces these 3D animations and broadcasts them directly to the giant screens in the stadium and to the global television feed.
Showing the digital twins.
Yes. You see the exact moment the ball was played, and you see the exact position of the attacking player's relevant body part. The viewer gets to see the identical, unambiguous evidence that the referee is using in the booth.
The exact same image.
Yes, that shared reality, that technological transparency, is the very definition of fairness. It completely democratizes the truth of the match.
That's a compelling argument on its face. But have you considered what fairness actually means in the context of football? Is it democratized truth or just shared compliance?
What do you mean by shared compliance?
You are conflating mathematical accuracy with fairness.
How are those two things not the same when we're talking about a rule book? If the rule says you cannot be past the last defender, then 3 millimeters past the defender is a violation of the rule. Fairness is the equal, consistent application of the law.
But the law was written for human beings operating in physical space, relying on human perception. It was not written for 3D digital avatars operating in a geometrical simulation.
The rules apply regardless of the tools we use to enforce them. Football is a fluid, continuous, emotionally charged sport. It is about momentum. It's about human intuition, but it still is. The technology just ensures the boundaries of that momentum are respected.
But look at what happens to the match. When we stop a high-stakes knockout game to penalize an attacker because a sensor firing 500 times a second detected a biometric violation that literally no human could ever perceive, we aren't protecting the integrity of the sport. We are alienating the fans.
I don't think fans are alienated by correct decisions.
They are alienated by the microscopic pedantry of it. It's what we might call the paradox of precision.
The paradox of precision?
Yes. The more microscopically accurate your measurement becomes, down to the millimeter, the less human beings actually trust it or feel good about it, because it operates entirely outside the spectrum of our own reality. We are treating a beautiful, messy, human game like a sterile geometry equation.
But doesn't that geometry ensure fairness?
The fans in the stadium don't erupt in joy because of a well-executed algorithmic interpolation. They cheer for the human drama. By enforcing this hyper-precision, we risk sanitizing the sport and stripping away the human essence that made football the most popular game on earth in the first place.
I completely understand the romanticism of that view. I really do. But let's be honest about what the human drama you're defending actually includes.
It includes the passion of the game.
It also includes the drama of an underdog team being knocked out of the World Cup because a tired, dehydrated linesman in the 89th minute missed a clear offside by a full yard.
Well, mistakes happen, yes.
Catastrophic mistakes happen. The history of the World Cup is absolutely littered with hand-of-God moments and officiating errors that defined entire careers and broke the hearts of millions of people.
That is true.
When we have the technological capability to eradicate that profound injustice, don't we have a moral imperative to the sport to actually use it?
Eradicating a 1-yard error is one thing. Officiating a 3mm deviation is another.
But the mechanism to fix the 1-yard error inherently requires the precision that spots the 3mm error. You can't have one without the other.
I suppose.
The 3D avatars aren't turning football into a geometry equation. They are ensuring that the geometry doesn't steal the spotlight from the actual football. By delivering these instant, transparent, highly accurate visual models, the technology cuts the VAR review time by 30 seconds.
30 seconds is a significant chunk of time in a match, yes.
Exactly. That's 30 seconds of dead air, of players standing around, of fans groaning in the stands, just gone. The controversy is silenced, and what we are left with is just the talent of the athletes.
I wouldn't call it romanticism to acknowledge the practical limitations of treating data as dogma. And I certainly wouldn't say the controversy is silenced at all. We have simply changed the vocabulary of the controversy.
What do you mean by that? Change the vocabulary?
Instead of arguing at the pub about whether the linesman was out of position, fans are now going to argue about the frame rate of the cameras. They're going to argue about the calibration of the microchip in the ball and the algorithmic bias of the AI predicting player movement when it's raining.
I highly doubt fans will be arguing about algorithmic bias at the pub.
You'd be surprised. We haven't solved the existential angst of sports officiating. We've just made it exponentially more technical. But those technical arguments are based on objective metrics, not subjective human error.
Does that matter to the fan who just lost? When a critical match is decided by an AI determining that a digital twin's toe was technically offside based on a calculated probability, the fan doesn't feel like justice was served. They feel like the game was hijacked by a server rack.
But if you follow that logic to its end, aren't we both just arguing over who gets to hold the blindfold? You trust the flawed human referee because their flaws are relatable. I trust the machine because its flaws are measurable and constantly improving.
I trust the human because the human understands the context of the sport. A referee knows that a millimeter infraction on the opposite side of the pitch didn't actually impact the goal. The machine just sees a binary trigger.
Which brings us to the core tension we've been unpacking today. We are looking at the exact same technological revolution, a system that tracks 29 data points per player 50 times a second, synchronizes with a 500 Hz ball sensor, and models 1,248 athletes into stunning 3D space.
It's an incredible system.
It is. I look at this and see the triumph of objectivity. The 2026 World Cup's AI infrastructure successfully strips away the damaging ambiguity of past tournaments. It isn't sanitizing the game, it is elevating it.
I hear your point.
Providing clear, fast, and democratized visual evidence directly to the viewer protects the integrity of the athlete's efforts. It ensures the rules are applied with mathematical consistency, regardless of human fatigue or bad camera angles.
And while I acknowledge the breathtaking scope, speed, and engineering behind this technology, my position remains that we must approach it with deep intellectual humility.
Humility is always good?
Right. A glossy 3D animation is not absolute truth. It is a highly sophisticated, generative representation of data that remains vulnerable to environmental factors, temporal gaps, and algorithmic assumptions.
We definitely disagree on the severity of those vulnerabilities.
We do. The technology does not erase human subjectivity. It merely rebrands it as data, shifting the interpretation to the software engineers in the VAR room. We must be incredibly careful that in our pursuit of microscopic, millimeter-level accuracy, we do not sacrifice the intuitive, fluid, human character of football.
Yet, despite our deep disagreement on whether this technology represents a new era of truth or just a beautiful illusion, we've reached a clear point of convergence today. Artificial intelligence has fundamentally and permanently altered the DNA of football.
Oh, without a doubt.
The days of relying solely on the naked eye and a whistle are over, replaced by a complex ecosystem of digital twins and millisecond tracking. The challenge moving forward will be exactly what we've explored today, finding that delicate balance between embracing technological precision and preserving the essential human spirit of the sport.
Precisely. And if you dig further into the source material, there is so much more to explore regarding how the same AI infrastructure is democratizing tactical analysis for smaller nations, completely changing how teams prepare for these matches.
That's a whole other conversation right there.
It really is. The offside debate we're having is really just the most visible tip of the iceberg.
It really is. And it forces us to ask a question that goes far beyond the pitch. Think back to that opening thought. We used to look at a 2D photograph and believe we were seeing absolute reality. Now we look at a flawless 3D avatar generated in milliseconds by an algorithm.
It makes you wonder.
It does. As the technology gets clearer, faster, and more perfectly precise, are we finally seeing the undeniable truth, or have we just built a much more convincing illusion? We'll leave that for you to decide.